So I was in the gym the other day working with a client, and I was trying to explain what progressive overload looks like, feels like. When you're working within a strength and conditioning environment, is kind of maybe an easier thing for us to kind of talk about because we can relate it to the reps, the sets, the weights that you're using. And essentially we're looking to consistently layer within reason, week on week, your ability to move more, to produce more power, to be able to lift more, to be able to produce more power, more speed. But what I actually said was that you're allowed to win, but just not for long. So when you're trying to build someone's abilities up, whether it's out on the trail, out on the track, on the bike, in the water, in the gym, you want to see success, right? Because you've got to build up this level of confidence. You want to make sure, because we all need it. We all need to know that we're moving in the right direction. Things are getting easier. You're able to do one more rep, two more reps. You're able to move that said weight a bit easier. You're able to do certain exercises with much more free flowing action. You've got more control performing certain exercises like single leg RDLs or lateral box step ups, like reverse lunges, things that potentially you were unstable doing in the first place. But then you're noticing that progression, and that progression again doesn't have to come when it comes to this saying where you're allowed to win but not for long. When you first start off working with someone, you may just give them a non-weight bearing variation of a step up. Right, I want you to step up and I want you to hold that top position, nice high knee position. Show us you've got the good stability. You can, then as you lower down, I want you not to dump your weight. I want you to control that descent. Same thing with a split squat. Can you find that position? Can you drop that back knee to the ground? Can you drive back up with little instability radiating through your body? Good kind of alignment of your hip, your shoulders, your knees in a nice line. Get some wins on the board, right? And allow that person to win. And as I was saying to a client the other day, I was saying, great, doing really well, but you're not allowed to win for too long. Let's progress this. And it's nothing, you don't want to be. You want someone to win in the short term and you want to congratulate them for that. But for most people, they want to be progressing and they want to see what's next. And it's giving them that insight into, okay, what's next? Adding load, adding more reps, adding more intensity, adding more speed, adding more range of motion potentially. But what you're looking for is obviously that next level. And sometimes it can be too much of a greater leap. And some people, they literally will add 25% body weight in terms of the weights they're putting in their hands. They'll add an extra 12 inches to the jump that they're performing. You're asking almost too much for that person, and there's almost immediate failure. What we're looking for is that incremental. We're just looking for that incremental increase in complexity and intensity. Adding a few more reps might do it. You might push them to that level of fatigue where they start to find that instability, they become more imbalanced in those last few reps. You might add an extra set of the same amount of reps and the same intensity, but you're still going to be pushing them a little bit beyond and maybe creating a bit more fatigue. You may add more load. You may add a greater range of motion. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to layer. We're constantly looking to layer when it comes to progressive overload. Is there a ceiling? Yes, there would be. There probably will be a ceiling with the person that you're working with. And that will be based upon their training experience. That will be based upon their level of athleticism, like how strong are they right now? What are they trying to achieve? How many sessions a week are you able to push that person within that context? So how many runs, how many rides, how many swims, how many strength sessions? And it's the same thing when you apply it into the sporting context. You've got to get some wins on the board. Like, we are surrounded in a fitness culture where people are getting smashed very regularly, and they may turn up to a group ride, a group run, they might go up to a track session, and it can be very disempowering sometimes when you just don't seemingly are getting many wins on the board. You may turn up to a gym environment, in a class environment, and you're training with other people, and you just don't feel like you're progressing. So we've got to get some wins on the board, but within reason. What's next? We want to be. We don't want you winning for too long. We want you to be going right now. What moving into that kind of grey area where we're starting to having to focus harder on your technique, making your body work that much harder, because that's where the growth is. And I think the reason I'm talking about this is because a lot of people get stuck where they're not seeing enough results from all the hard work they're putting in. A lot of people are stuck just doing a lot of zone 2 because maybe there's anxiety about the dosage, how much intensity, how much interval work they should be doing. A lot of people in a gym, they're just going through the motions. They're doing the right exercises. They may even be doing the right rep ranges, but they're not doing it at the right intensities. They're not experimenting with those other variables. They are winning for too long, in a sense. So what I want you to be thinking about is those marginal gains. Progressive overload is allowing yourself to win, but not for too long. What does that increase in intensity or complexity look like? Well, it's going to be dependent on the exercise, dependent on the environment, but it's certainly food for thought. You want to have that level of empowerment, that level of motivation that you're seeing wins, getting wins on the board, hence why we want to test and evaluate. But then let's push on, because more than likely your goals are pretty, a further afield. You want to be going further, going faster. You want to be getting stronger. You want your body to be making those physiological changes. To do that, it requires greater stimulus. It requires greater level of intensity, level of volume, level of work. That is what progressive overload is going to be bringing to the table. But it's the right dosage. It's appropriately applying that alongside everything else that you've got going on. So just a little thought.